Hi, my name is Brandon Brana, and on today's episode of The Transition Expert, we're going to be meeting with Isabella. Isabella is a caretaker who works with families that live in their home independently and are trying to stay in their home. Although they're dealt with a number of different setbacks and hurdles to do so, she works rigorously to do everything in her power so that she can keep these individuals in her home. But it's not without challenge. Those challenges are dealt with mental, physical, and emotional upheavals that she has been overcoming as long as she could, but she can't any further. And in this episode, we're going to learn a lot about how to overcome those hurdles, those pitfalls, if you will. And I hope you learn a lot from today's episode. Thank you. Hi, I'm Brandon Bronan, the transition expert with Life Cycle Transitions. It's my pleasure to introduce today's podcast guest, Isabella. Uh, to give a brief background on Isabella, she is a caretaker, which happens to be the heart and soul of taking care of individuals that are going through or have gone through or in the middle of a bit of a dilemma regarding their health, their home needs. And these individuals are dedicated, committed to making sure that these individuals can stay and live in their home gracefully and age in place. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Isabella.
Hi,
Hi, Isabella. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Yes. Can you tell us about what you do as a caregiver, and and what is expected of you typically?
When I go in, I check on the overall well being of the person to make sure that nothing's happened generally over the weekend or the course of a couple days in between when I've seen them last. I get them up generally for their day, whether that is bathing or eating, depending on their function. And I make sure that they've taken their medications and I get them ready for their day. I'm generally there from 2 to 3 hours with a client, and then I continue on with what I have to do, whether that's staying with them or taking them to the doctor's appointment or moving on to a next client.
What inspired you to follow this career path?
Well, it was a client of mine that actually just came forward and asked me if I would take him on as a client.
Really? And what are some of the challenges that go into doing what you do?
Well, some of the major challenges can be, hmm, what are some of the major challenges? It can be a simple thing like not following. That is a very serious question.
Mhm.
Clients that are unable to meet their challenges by not getting past their illness or their circumstance, that can be a real challenge that I have to enter into. And it's more than just a handshake.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
mean, we see the challenges. We can only imagine what those challenges are. What would you say are some of the joys?
It's a simple smile or a thank you on the way out the door. It doesn't have to be much to go on to the next day.
Well, I mean, every day is a new day. I mean, you're dealing with people both physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah,
Um, Caretaker burnout is a real thing. It's
it is.
and it doesn't always have to happen from a caretaker professional standpoint. Sometimes those caretakers are the loved ones, the husband caring for his disabled wife or vice versa, or the son or daughter who has mom or dad living with them or they live with them, or, and vice versa in that case as well. Um, can you tell us about a family you work with or circumstances of how you've worked with them in the home? Give me a real life scenario of a situation that you're currently working with the family.
Yeah, so I have a real life situation where I come in and I relieve a loved one where actually get to go out and have some of their own time to do whatever they want to do, whether they want to read a book or whether they want to go for a walk or get their hair done or just have some just peace, because they have to come back and have that real moment when they have to walk in, and I'm not there. I can't be there 24/7, but if I can be there a couple hours a week to relieve them from that time, it's just a joy for me to do, just have that smile on their face and they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for coming."
No, I mean, listen, you definitely have the aura, the gentle touch and conversation in your voice inflections. You appear to be very passionate about what you do, which is
Thank you.
very important. I've been preview to work with a lot of caretakers, case managers, social workers, and I can always remember the ones that have what you have, that je ne
Oh,
sais quoi, that affection and warmth that makes doing the job that much more easier and that much more joyful and inadvertently proudful. I mean, because if you don't enjoy what you do, is you're not going to be very good at it. Would you agree?
oh, absolutely. I truly try to treat it as an extension of they are my family.
Now, as a transition expert, I get the call when something happens, something's going to happen, or something needs to happen.
Mm,
Very often, I work with the case managers, the discharge planners, the social workers. When Mrs. Smith is in the home, and they've been in this home and it's been compromised for quite some time,
mm,
they then go into a situation where they get injured, well, where EMS, emergency medical services, are unfortunately called. They arrive, whether because there's a health and wellness check from a relative who hadn't spoke to their loved one in a while. Specifically around the pandemic, we would get a lot of those calls where people were able to see their loved ones because of isolation or because of the lockdown. So typically they'll get the health and wellness call,
yeah.
and in that call they would say, "I haven't spoke to my mom. She's in Pittsburgh or she's in New Jersey." Or wherever she is. And in doing so, the EMSs would go there and they would find their loved one maybe fallen or injured in the home. Now these are homes that have already been compromised for so many years, and the family knew about it or was aware about it and just didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And once they get the call, the EMSs then take them to the hospital, and from the hospital they end up in some form of skilled rehab, looking to some point return home. But one of the biggest issues that I've always expressed to individuals in these situations, why the caretakers, the home care agencies are so significant and so important, is that if you want to age in place in your home, like the last time I read, 75% of Americans want to age in their home. The home has to be adequate for caretakers like yourself to provide and administer services.
Yes.
But unfortunately, Mr. Smith, I'm gonna use Mr. Smith, haven't always done what they needed to do to maintain this house, be it because of finances, be it because of limited mobility, or not having the energy, or having some mental health issues of their own that they've been struggling with. They now are dealt with this dilemma of how do I get back home? How do I return home?
Correct.
And now I'm discussing all these things in their room with their case manager, the discharge planner, and I'm going back and forth with them in their home to figure out what we need to do so that they can get their home together, so that they can get home care. Now, you and I met under some uh, unusual circumstances, or not for me, but maybe for you, because it sounds like you actually had one of these situations with your most recent clients, right?
Yeah, I'm involved in one of these cases that is I'm very familiar to. And I was blessed to meet you on the job site where you were very detailed to do a walkthrough with me. That it was wonderful that you didn't say no, where 15 others had come in and almost ran out the door.
Mm.
So I was blessed to have met you, and it was from cleaning up the house. And I had was handed a brochure, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a blessing." And I'm like, "Thank you. I'll call them right away."
So tell me what happened, and thank you so much for the compliment. And but what happened with that particular client? We'll refer to them as Jack and Jill for
Mhm.
this interview to protect their privacy. But what was going on with their home, their situation, their circumstance?
So they, to protect their privacy, I'll be discreet as possible. They simply have declined, and they would like to age in place. um, through this decline, their home has also declined. And they need some safety measures if they would like to age in place that I am unable to give them alone. And I need help on this journey if I'm going to continue with them.
Now they've been in that home how many years?
To my knowledge, it's been 30 plus. Diesel.
Okay, and do they have any family members that are with us still that have been communicating with you?
One, and the communication has stopped, which is what I was saddened by.
Life cycle sort of encompasses and embodies that nature of how we adjust to change. Life cycle clients range from the son or daughter taking care of the affairs for their mom or dad, from a recent retiree anticipating getting their house ready for sale and all the hassles and hurdles that they're going to have to take a home that's been in the family for 30, 40 years, or to a client that maybe struggled with hoarding, and don't quite know who to call or how to call to get help. Is we're the family when the family isn't there. Whether it's just too much of a daunting task for your loved ones or yourself to handle, you contact us. We answer the call, and they're definitely the solution for you. Okay. And, have you expressed, some of your concerns regarding the house and trying to, make it a little bit more comfortable so you can provide your services?
I've tried to be very forward and throw no punches since I first got involved with this client, that it was going to be a hard case and that I was willing to take it on, but I was very forward with it.
What's it like working in an environment? I mean, can you share with the listeners and viewers, what's it like to be a caretaker, to work in an environment that isn't the most comfortable?
There's um there's a lot of emotion attached to it because it's one step forward, but there's five steps back. I clean one area just to come back, and it's they got comfortable in it. They mucked it up. They they lived in it because it was comfortable. I made it comfortable because I just wanted a simple place to sit that was sanitary. Um, I keep coming back because they say they're hungry, and as a Christian, they deserve to be fed. They're humans.
Mhm.
I care for them.
I mean, you really are a gentle soul, and I can't tell you that enough, because just the compassion in your voice. I mean, it says it all. The fact that you are a Christian, the fact that you care about what you do, the fact that those simple things bother you and keep you up at night. Going to this environment every day, do you feel that you're checking out? Do you feel that you're hitting the end of your rope a little bit?
There are days that I go home and I cry. Um, there are conditions that I wouldn't I wouldn't even allow a family member of mine to live in, and I treat these people as an extension of my family, so it deeply saddens me that they exist in this.
Mhm. Are they? How's what's their mental capacity? I mean, well, how would you explain or describe their ability to be uh, cognitive about what's going on?
I think that they've existed in it so long that they want to just see past it, so they choose to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have they been sort of like dismissive when you brought these things to their attention, or are they open minded to it?
Depends on the day.
Well, I mean, I often tell people, I mean, we've done over 1,000 transitions, and it's people don't understand what it's like to communicate to their friends or families or loved ones about some concerns.
Yeah.
And they say, well, how can you say you love this person or you love that person, and that's your son or that's your mom or your dad, yet you let them live in this environment? Well, I often shoulder that or pair that with my own question. How many times have you been over your friend or family member's house and the house wasn't very clean or wasn't very tidy? that you felt comfortable enough to tell them that?
Oh, that is something.
I mean, most of us turn a blind eye to it, right? We just politely move clothes that are on the couch to the side, or we refuse to eat something or drink something out of the home, to be polite. And that's, but we don't feel compelled or comfortable to confront someone and say, "Hey, your house is in this condition or that condition. You should really do something about it." Or if we do, we do it in a very jokingly fashion, but there's never any official or formal intervention of saying, "Listen, I'm really concerned. Here's why I'm concerned." And when it does reach that precipice or that point of concern, most of the time they're not letting you in the house at this point. They're meeting
Right.
you at the door.
Yeah.
Um, but you, unfortunately, because of your profession as a caretaker, you're entrenched in it, you're engulfed in it every day. You walk into it. And I always tell clients that your home tells you more about you than any other facet of your life. It tells you how much time you spend in any particular room, what you do, when you're doing it, how you're doing it. But um, it's also a very intimate place. It's your sanctuary. I mean, most of us put masks on every single day to be an executive, to be a doctor, to be a teacher, to be a professional, to work at our job, to work at our churches, to be a community advocate, or whatever we do in our personal and professional life or recreational life. But when we go home, all of those masks completely go off. We no longer have to be anyone but be ourselves. So you often, in my profession, find people in their most vulnerable in their home.
Yeah. This is where I'm the most relaxed. You
Yeah.
know, I had my dog in here, which is he's my service dog. He's here for my fibromyalgia, but he's wonderful.
Yeah, I heard him earlier. So it's how do you think, like in this particular case with the Jack and Jills, how has it affected your home life?
There has been some late nights, some stressful nights, some crying. It's There's some tough nights. There really is. There's no denying it. There's some prayers, and I have to say, there's some pretty big answers because you're here.
Well, thank you, thank you. I had the privilege of working with the Jack and Jills about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah,
And 3.5 years ago, I sat down and we did this massive overhaul in the home that they've been in for a number of years. And they were such a great couple, very, very warm, very thoughtful. Um, and I was working with the children at the time, the two children that were lived in different states that were, advocating and trying to find resources for their mom and dad. And when I did the initial walkthrough in the property with the children, one of my biggest concerns was that, that this is going to require a lot of work to make this work. But more importantly, I felt that maybe the family would be best served if they were to move into an assisted or independent living because it was just so much house for them to live in. And as a transition expert, those are conversations that often are very difficult to preface with people. I remember one time walking into a home with an older couple who had been in their home for I want to say 25 years, and their kids were all grown, went away to college, moved away from the home, and then they still had this house, and they had contacted us to do an evaluation assessment to determine what the house was, the condition of the home was in, and to determine what was required to make it comparable to homes that are in their general area in the event that they decided to sell it. So we did this elaborate evaluation assessment, and I'm sitting and I'm talking with them, and I noticed that the two of them were avid travelers. They enjoyed traveling.
wow.
They were both retired, and they literally traveled. I would say about 70%, if not 75% of the year. They had made it a decision that they were just going to see the world. They were going to travel from place to place, and they were in good health. They took good care of themselves. They were, gym enthusiasts, and I remember asking them as I pulled the husband to the side, we were outside, and I said, you know, um, why do you guys have this home? I mean, this
Yeah.
is a big home. It's a lot of overhead. It's a lot of maintenance, and you're not here. I mean, you would probably be better served in a small condo. And since you travel so much, and maybe even renting one, not even owning it, if that's the case. And and I remember him giving me this dirty look. It was a dirty look.
Why? It was
He
such a
gave
good suggestion.
he gave me this look, and I just sort of disregarded it, because sometimes I'm the bearer of bad news. And
Oh.
no matter how logical I'm thinking, or pragmatically I'm focused on a solution, it's no one wants to hear that at certain points in their life. Either they're not ready to hear it, or they've heard it too many times. But in this particular case, I can tell by the way his facial expressions were, he wasn't too pleased with that remark or suggestion. And then 20 minutes later, I remember him pulling me to the side. He said, "Listen, I got to tell you something." And I said, what do you mean? I said, "Sure, talk to me." He said, um, "You mentioned to me about selling this home, and you made some valid points, but what you don't understand is, me and my wife bought this house about 25 years ago, and when we bought this house, we couldn't afford it, and we really couldn't afford it. It was well above our means, and when we placed the bid on the home, we really didn't think that we were going to get it.
Hmm.
But by the grace of God, we got it, and we always felt lucky and fortunate that we had this home, and we raised our kids here. It was always the staple of all the holidays and the family festivities, and it was our identity. It was who we were. It was
Wow.
it was the place that everyone congregated, and my family, all my friends. It was our identity. It was everything to us. And to hear someone to rationalize this without understanding all the emotional attachment is the reason why I frowned at you a little bit when you made that suggestion. Although I asked you to come here and to do this, I still don't know if I'm quite ready, to accept it. And a lot of what I do as a transition expert is to focus on three A's: to accept, acknowledge, and address.
Yeah.
Accept that something has changed. Change is a hard thing. It's looking in
Yes,
the
it is.
mirror. It's looking in the mirror and seeing yourself not as you were, but as you are, and seeing
Yep.
your situation, seeing your kids that have gone and grown and moved on and had kids of their own, and to see you and your wife not able to shovel the snow or to do all the things that you've been able to do for so many years before, and now come to the realization that you got to do something different. And change is that hard thing that we have a hard time swallowing. um, Acknowledging what you need to do is another thing. I mean, once you get to the point of accepting it, now you have to acknowledge that there's an action that needs to follow. And then, last and not least, is to address it. And that's
Yeah.
an even harder thing. I think in this case with the Jack and Jills, when I mentioned that to their kids about the possibility of getting them transitioned from the home, immediately I was greeted with, my parents are not there. They're not doing it. They don't want to do it. They want to stay here. They're adamant about staying here. And until their dying days, I want them to stay here until they're dragged out of this home. And I couldn't understand it then. And but over the years, I've gotten closer and closer to fully understanding that, which is a very difficult thing for people on the outside to understand, which is the home is a different thing. It's a different element. It's a live force, a source of so much pride in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right. I didn't see it from that perspective. I'm glad you shared that.
yeah, I mean, the lens of being attached to this home for them, it's it's their independence.
Mm.
It's them being able to stand on their own too. My grandfather was a firm believer of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah,
Um,
my mother says that.
yeah, it's the old way of doing things. In fact,
Yep.
my grandfather, uh, before he passed on, I used to always take him to the hospital when he wasn't feeling well, and one of his biggest cliches was, "Don't take my boots off."
That means work is done.
That mean works is done.
Yeah.
It's an old cowboy understanding of the road set ahead of you. You want to be prepared for it. And um, the generation of the Jack and Jills are a strong generation. They're hard working. They work 30, 40 years to pay off their mortgage, to pay their home off, and they feel that living in their home and staying in their home is going to protect them and insulate them from the outside world of mistreat and neglect, and going into these community style living environments to them means vulnerability and means to be susceptible to mistreatment. And it's hard for me as a transition expert that's connected with thousands of assisted livings all throughout the US that have vetted them, that have met with them, that have talked with them, that have went through these communities, done tours, so that when I refer a family to these environments, these communities, that it's the right community. And if it's not, I'm the first phone call that that family contacts to say, hey, you transitioned me here, it's not working out for my mom or dad, I want them out of here. And we will come back to that community, and we would vocalize those concerns, and we would immediately find that family a new home for the person. So those fears are no longer real fears. They're not necessarily valid fears.
Was there a recent death in your family? Do you feel imprisoned in your home due to clutter? Or have you recently fallen on hard times financially? Have you thought about renovating, or are you too fed up and simply want to sell your home and relocate? Let Life Cycle Transitions help you evaluate the true nature of your home and living requirements to help you decide whether to ditch it or fix. Our team of transition experts will alleviate your anxiety by going through every meticulous step with you, from renovating to selling your home. We will even help you find a new home for you if need be. Our team of local carpenters, realtors, and appraisers will ensure every measure is met and accurately completed within our 30-day guarantee. We'll make your problem our priority by completing your unique transition in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cash. Take a look at our digit or fix package options, and if this sounds great, give us a call and schedule your transition assessment today.
But in the case like the Jack and Jills, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, because when I talked to you before, you're at your wits end with this project. What's going to happen tomorrow and the day after? I mean, what are we looking at the next 30 days?
My goal for them is to get their bedroom from upstairs to downstairs and to stop having them use the stairs on a daily basis, which is the main concern of their falls for me when I'm not there. I'm able to assist them, of course, when I'm there up and down the stairs, but there are days that I'm, of course, not there, that they tackle them, and there's no stair lift that's able to do that with the turn that's in the stairs the way it is without a contractor, and that's not a possibility.
So you're thinking, if this is going to be a sustainable living, like for example, what we had mentioned or introduced 3.5 years ago was two options. Option one was they needed to be transitioned or downsized into an assisted or independent living where they can be monitored and things can be put into place from an independent standpoint, where if these certain indicators were breached or alarmed, then we knew, then the community would know that they needed additional care. Now they need
Yeah.
one more person or this care to be prioritized so that that person can be monitored. But living in but that was option A.
That would
Option
be amazing if that could happen, but I was told no by the family.
No, and that's what I was told 3.5. And then option B was, okay, let's go in, let's get this entire place transition, which we did. We did everything from packing, sorting, cleaning, organizing, rearranging, moving things from different areas of the floor so that things were reachable, functional, and adaptable so that they can stay in the home. And then we highlighted a number of suggestions that we thought were important from an adaptive accessibility component, such as grab bars, chair lifts, um, and ramps and things of that nature, that will make it so that they can age in place gracefully. And then, we wanted a very specific, comprehensive home care plan, which would allow for a person like yourself to be in the home to administer meal preps, errand runs, uh, cleaning, sanitary maintenance, and all those other things that we thought they would need in order to stay in the home. And as those indicators and things, were rang, you would know that additional services were going to be needed until you get to a point where, okay, now this is around the clock. We can't do this. Let's now go into assisted or independent. Um, Tell me about the level of service that you have to provide to this particular family. I mean, what do you think is what are you providing now, but and what do you think is adequate?
What I'm providing now is anywhere from 4 to 16 hours a week. And what would be adequate would be twice a day going over there for probably 4 to 6 hours a day.
Okay. And now, when you initially took them on as a client, what were you anticipating?
2 days a week for 2 hours a day.
Now, is it uncommon for a caretaker like yourself to go into a situation and have expectations and then find out that you're a little bit in over your head?
Not usually.
Mhm.
Usually the expectations are, pretty within the margins.
Mhm.
It's not generally this broad.
Now, did you find in this particular situation that you bit off more than maybe you initially chewed?
That's an amen statement.
So how, so how did you do? What did you do? Because I'm sure you had to have had a conversation with your husband. And what did he recommend?
Well, the first thing I talked to Jack and Jill about was what were their expectations from me, because I didn't want to disappoint for one, and I wanted to know what they were looking for two.
Hmm. And so, do you think that this situation, you know, can can be improved? And if so, how do you think it needs to be improved?
The main concern for me is safety, and the second concern is sanitation.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
those are the two big things.
what so I mean, I had an opportunity to come back to the home recently,
Yeah,
and I do think that um, 3.5 years ago, when we came in and we addressed all these things, we were coming back into a situation that had already deteriorated for many years prior.
yeah.
I think that because of where that home is located in a very rural area where there's a lot of plants and a lot of vegetation and so forth, there's a lot of pollen and so on and so forth that's going through this home like a wind tunnel. You know,
Mhm.
routine maintenance in terms of dusting and cleaning is crucial, um,
Yes.
because what would happen over 3 to 6 months, it'd be like you never did anything whatsoever.
Right.
Uh,
It's almost it is. It's not almost. It is hard for me to keep up.
and not to mention, caring for them and having to stay on top of that, like you have done to the best of your ability. Add that with the fact that you walked into an already, compromised or challenged environment. That needs to be addressed. So I think the initial of a week or 2 weeks or however long it's going to take to get this place to an immaculate condition, then shouldered with having a routine service provided bi-weekly, once or twice a week, to come in there and to do the cleaning and to do the dusting and to do all the sanitizing and disinfecting, is going to make your work environment or the work environment for anyone that comes in there, that much more enjoyable to show up at work, but your services are going to be greatly improved. I mean, one thing, let's just talk about that. As a caretaker, does working in an environment that's been compromised like this, does it affect your ability to provide your services?
It does. I mean, one of the first things I do is kind of, put my mask on, I put my gloves on, and I wear a certain pair of shoes every time I go there, just because I don't want to cross contaminate, my vehicle. I don't want to cross contaminate another client's house. And I try to just keep a certain set of clothes when I go there because they need to be cleaned when I come home. And I get awful headaches when I go there, and I didn't know why until just recently, and I was informed why of the fumes that are in the house. And it's just kind of sad when you put it all together why you're getting sick, and you're getting sick from caring for other people. And I still do it though. I still care for them.
Well, I mean, and that's the reason why caretaker burnout is real. I mean,
Yeah.
you, Isabella, caretaker burnout is basically giving your heart and everything into a situation, although it's taking from you something that's not, renewable. I mean, which is your peace, your physical well-being, your mental well-being and emotional. I mean, you're putting yourself into this mixer every single day. You're trying to make all these necessary changes and strives to reach a point of excellence. However, it becomes a very daunting task when you don't feel that you're accomplishing the goal the way you would initially intend to do it, or you initially intended to do it.
Correct.
Um, yeah, in essence, you're burning the candle on both ends, and I feel that in your case, we have to do something different. Sustain our focus with life cycle is about sustainability, meaning to avoid throwing good money at bad money and wasting good effort on poor results. Is about addressing the underlying issue head on. No more sugarcoating, no more cutting corners, going right to the source and saying this is the problem, this needs to be addressed. Otherwise, we're basically wasting our time. We're wasting a lot of resources that are not like a rubber band that's just going to keep snapping back to size once you keep pulling at it. I
Yeah.
mean, you're a human being and you have a great heart. You have other clients. And this one particular client, I bet you would say, is probably taking up a lot more of your time than others.
Uh, yes.
Uh, and other client and other professionals, refuse to take on this client, right?
Oh yeah, they've been denied by others, I've been told.
And that typically is the case with me as well. I mean, as a transition expert, I'm going into situations where other companies don't have the bandwidth to handle it. They just don't. They're not suited for it. They're not prepared for it, and they realized as a business that we can't allow ourselves to take 80% of our resources into one client when we have so many other clients that we have to handle. And I think you're reaching that conclusion at this point, but the only thing that's holding you intact is your heart and your
Yeah.
compassion and your faith, like you mentioned earlier. I want to help you, and I want to do our part to see what we can do to help the family get over this rough patch. If they want to stay in the home, then there's going to have to be some hard line facts brought to question. The sustainability is in question. We need to look at it, honestly, and say this is what it is. I mean, it's not a matter of knowing right from wrong, but a matter of allowing that which is wrong to be remarkably right, because we turn a blind eye. And that's what happens every single day in every home across the world, that there are concerned loved ones and family members that recognize and acknowledge that there are some compromising situations that their family members or loved ones are going through, but they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to question it. They don't know how to preface it. And instead of formulating an intervention like life cycle does, they just wait for a situation to unfold, and then they say we're just going to deal with it when that person no longer has the fight to fight us for it.
Mm.
We want to change that narrative. We want to change the objective. We want to sit down with the loved ones, sit down with the clients, the Jack and Jill in this case,
Yep.
and start and set a transition evaluation assessment, an intervention, if you will, in this case, to say, listen, Isabella can't do this any longer. Here's why. Here's what needs to happen. And if you don't do this, this is what's in fear of occurring.
You mean it?
I mean it. I mean it. I think I
No.
think I think we're at that point, Isabella. I think you've expressed enough, concern in this case that makes me feel that I'm willing to come back yet a third time at this point and sit down with the family and say, listen, whether you hire a life cycle to do the things that we know need to be done, here's a plan of action that we think the family needs to adopt from someone or anyone who's willing to do it, to make it so that their loved ones, their mom and dad, doesn't get hurt, because slip and falls and,
Yes.
and other issues that we don't know quite yet, that we both feel are there, are prevalent, and they're not going to go away unless we do something about it. And I think that let's schedule that, let's get it together, let's get an evaluation and intervention on the board, and let's make this happen. How does that sound for you?
Oh, it sounds amazing. It really does. I mean, I can't thank you enough.
All right, wonderful. So listen, before I let you go, and this is another wonderful episode of the Transition Expert, what would you say to another caretaker or home care agency, or someone who's caring for their mom or their dad that's going through what you're going through? What advice would you give them to inspire them for a more positive change?
Well, treat your clients as family. Remember to see past any illnesses. Remember to breathe. and to value your time. And families, please remember to check in with your caretakers. We are humans. We're not machines.
Wonderful. You are a blessed soul. I mean, all the things that you do and all the things that you have done is the reason why I get up every single day, because
Thank
I want to
you.
give you reprieve. I honestly do. I mean, you and the caretakers of the world and the social workers of the world are the salt of the earth. I mean, you guys get up every single day and you do a very difficult job. You don't always get the praise. No one tells you how great of a job you're doing and how wonderful of work you're doing, and but I'm telling you for all those who don't tell you, that you're doing a wonderful job. And thank you so very much for being on the show. This show is all about you. It's about caretakers, the social workers, the case managers, the women and men who get up every single day and and fight that good fight for all of us who don't necessarily know how hard it is for you to get up every day to do what you do. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you so very much. I am humbled. And may I say for a moment that you are validated, that you have found your place. You're a very good host.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very, very much. And
You're
again, thanks for being on to today's episode of the Transition Expert. And, for all of you that are going through situations and circumstances like Isabella, I hope you learned something, from this wonderful soul on how to exercise grace, faith, love, compassion, because we need it. I mean, check on not just your loved ones. Check on those caretakers. Check on those people who are caring for your mom and dad, because those are the ones that are going to make the indelible footprints, that are needed so that you can see and feel and experience the joy of knowing that your loved ones are being taken good care of. Make sure that those individuals are okay. Check in with them. Ask them, "How's my mom doing?" Furthermore, stop. How are you doing? I know my mom's difficult. I know my dad's a challenge, but how are you? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you sleeping? Ask those tough questions, and I guarantee you, the quality of the services that you're going to be given to that are going to be given to your parents and your loved ones are going to go up substantially. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.